Hi everyone, a lot of familiar faces. I'm Katie Story, the founder of the Good Future Design Alliance. This is Catherine Soder, the executive director. And we're both super excited to welcome you to, believe it or not, our first in-person event, conference of this style. I'm an interior designer here in San Francisco. In 2019, I ordered a sofa in Oakland that went to North Carolina and back to land in my client's living room in San Francisco. The sofa was missing for about 6 months, and I said, where is it? Found out it was in North Carolina, and I was shocked and appalled and disgusted. And then I was a little embarrassed, too. I said, oh my gosh, what have I done? Am I the only one making these flubs, sending furniture all over the country, or is anyone else facing these difficulties? And it turns out a lot of us are facing these difficulties, and this is a bigger problem than I realized. Some of the stats I found out were that 500 million tons of furniture, of construction debris ends up in the landfill every year in the US. And of that, 12 million tons of furniture alone, all these beautiful things we see, end up in the landfill alone every year. We have to do something about this. Every day we're getting messages on billboards, in magazines, in the Sunday paper reviews of like quarterly trends. Designers think this is hot or this is not, right? And that's all very fun and very good, and it has its place, but it is leading to this sense of overconsumption and destruction of our planet. I started digging around, seeing who was interested. Could anyone else care about this? A lot of people do, including all of you, which is awesome. And so I started the Good Future Design Alliance in 2020 to start bringing awareness to this issue and to creating a movement where we can design still beautifully, which is what all of us in this room do, but smarter materials and less waste. But we're just getting started. We brought on Catherine earlier this year to be our executive director and take the GFDA to the next level.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. So the outline of the day today is I have 3 panels. As you'll know, we're going to tackle the waste problem from very different perspectives, so you'll get a full view of what we're all about. We're about a community, and we're about supporting each other and building our networks. So one of the things we're trying to do as an organization is build a database of resources for all of you. We become the go-to place for you to look for places to reuse, recycle, refurbish, or even find a low-waste designer or architect for a construction service. We ask if anybody in this room has an idea or a service or a company they love, please provide that to us.
Making change does not have to be so monumental. You can do one thing at a time. And lowering your waste can actually be like kind of fun and creative. So thank you for being here.
Before we start, we're going to take a look back at how things used to be. It wasn't that long ago when this was a common occurrence. Some of us in this room probably remember this.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Anyway, you can't imagine that today, right? And when we show that, people sort of say, oh, that's just Hollywood, right? They made that up. That is not, that is actual. I mean, that happened in my lifetime, sadly. So what we're trying to do is understand that movements do take time. And we're establishing right now something super important because we're focusing on another side of the waste problem. Not picnic trash, but construction waste, which is twice what the household waste problem is. We know that if we make change right now, we are setting the stage for improvements for a future generation. For your children, for your grandchildren, we want them to look back at this group and this movement and say that we're so thankful for folks like the GFDA and all of you that made a difference starting right now.
Our built environment is a foundational part of our experience as human beings. It provides shelter, inspires us to do our work, helps us take care of our communities and our families. It's where we find beauty and a way to express ourselves in the world. And yet, so many parts of our built environment contribute a vast amount to waste and to climate change. Over 500 million tons of construction and demolition waste goes into landfills in the United States. and landfills are the third largest source of human-generated methane emissions. But it doesn't have to be this way. The Good Future Design Alliance is building a community of industry leaders and practitioners. Together, we're inspiring a movement to reduce waste in the built environment. Builders, architects, interior designers, and product makers are combining forces. We're designing a new world, a world where we design out waste from the beginning of our creative process. We champion source reduction, where we reduce waste at the very start of a project. We celebrate ways to reuse and recycle materials. This circular construction and design approach creates rich opportunities for growth and sustainability. The places we live and work really can nourish and inspire us for generations to come. Join the movement for a low-waste future.
So this is our first panel of the day, the role of low-waste products in the built environment. And I'd like to introduce Ferdaus Serhal, who you guys might remember from the Good Future Design Alliance. She was our communications manager for the last couple of years and has moved on to be the studio manager at Studio Ahead and is going to be leading this panel. So take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the panelists. So modern living necessitates that we have the built environment, encompasses all the spheres of our work, our living, and our play. We have created it to nurture how we imagine modern society should operate, and so this is where we're at. Our panelists today will be talking on this topic, and so I just wanted to introduce everybody. So we first have Dave Charne of Fyrn. He's the CEO and co-founder of Fyrn, an SF-based furniture design and build company, combining traditional principles of woodworking with modern manufacturing techniques to create pieces that define the new shape of craft, which is essential, hardworking, and fully serviceable. Embodying a systems approach to design and enabled by proprietary hardware, Fyrn is proving that it's possible to produce high-end craftsmanship at scale while taking responsibility for the full life cycle of the pieces. And then we have Jennifer Jones. Jennifer Jones is the principal designer and owner of Niche Interiors, an award-winning residential interior design firm known for its focus on sustainability and expertise in custom furnishings. A native of California who studied art history in Rome, Jennifer's designs achieve an elusive blend of sophistication and sustainability. Jennifer serves as an ambassador to the National Sustainable Furnishings Council and is a founding member of the Good Future Design Alliance. Niche Interiors work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Elle Decor, and House Beautiful. All right, and then we have Shujan Bertrand. Shu is an accomplished industrial designer with over 25 years experience working in Silicon Valley and Milan. She worked at notable firms such as Steelcase and Astro Studios before starting her brand, Aplat, almost a decade ago. As the founder of Aplat, a zero-waste design and manufacturing company based here in San Francisco, Shu has created a unique culinary soft goods collection that elevates the sharing and gifting of food, wine, and garden. Her commitment to sustainability is evident in everything she does, and she believes in creating beautiful and environmentally responsible products. Shu's passion for design and sustainable entrepreneurship started early in her life. At age 10, she upcycled cutoffs from her mother's tailoring business and created scrunchies that she sold to surf shops in Manhattan Beach. Awesome. Her commitment to sustainability is deeply rooted in who she is. In addition to her work with Aplat, Shu is IDSA's IDEA Award Jury Chair, implementing new sustainability awards for the program. She is also slated to be the next Industrial Design Department Chair at California College of the Arts this fall. Outside of work, Shu is a mother of 2 teenagers and is deeply committed to creating a more sustainable future for future generations. And has an awesome pair of glasses, so I love it. To start off, I wanted to ask each of you, what energizes you about low waste within your personal life?
Okay, I'm starting this thing? Okay. I have a 10-year-old son, and we've always told him the importance of environmentalism, and now he's taken on this life of his own and become his own little eco-warrior. And he'll point out things to us that we can do better in our own household, which to me, it keeps me on my toes. he's coming to us with ideas on how to improve on our own household. So I love that.
That's amazing. It starts young. You have to kind of create the new normal for kids. So thank you for doing that with your own. Would anybody else like to add?
Yeah, hi everybody. Similar. I've got an 8 and a 3-year-old. I think as we started to have kids, definitely sort of changed my focus a little bit on impact in the world, and just made us a lot more aware about thinking about the future, and also just a general frustration in the things that we were bringing into our lives sort of always being made of cheaper and cheaper materials, right? Wood and glass being replaced by plastics and composites that are, that instantly when you buy a product, it's not going to last. That's sort of, that frustration was a real catalyst for our family sort of thinking differently about the way that we go about things at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, hi everyone. Definitely my children. I have a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old, and teaching them everything comes from some place and it's made from someone, and it's always about teaching them from soil to seed to the home. But also having a pandemic puppy, it's changed my life and understanding how wasteful pets are too. And then now going into the university, I'm really excited to figure out how to implement sustainability in higher education and really teach designers from the beginning, because we didn't learn about sustainability at school. So that's, I guess, future generations I guess I'm focusing on.
That's great. Yeah, my parents taught me that you come into this world and you leave it as a better place. And so I think that we all collectively have been taught that bit of morality, and so I think it's really nice to see it in action where we as adults who can make change are trying to come together and do this. We know that the systems that we have in place don't really support that, and there is pushback, and we see that change happening with groups like the GFDA coming together, so it's really great to see. An interesting fact, construction and demolition waste accounts for approximately 20% of the waste in the US, and 80% of an average home can be salvaged for reuse. That's a huge percentage of something to be completely thrown and put to waste. With that fact, what role does low waste play in your work day to day?
I'll take that. I think you started off with that amazing fact, and that's something that's so important for interior designers, architects, and general contractors to know about. Clients can actually get a tax break by hiring a deconstruction team to come in and take apart the usable aspects of their house. It could be kitchen cabinets, fixtures, appliances, and then donating those for reuse, and then they get a tax break. So it's a win-win, and that's a huge part on the construction side of my business that we focus on.
That's great. Then you take the time to educate clients and maybe the vendors that you work with about this. And then do you find that there's pushback?
I think the tax breaks are pretty great, and clients, they think I wasn't planning on getting anything from this anyway. I didn't care what happens to a house when I'm remodeling it. It's not a hard sell.
That's good. Does anybody else want to add to?
So in us being in soft goods and manufacturing with organic cotton, to me it's precious, it's expensive, and it's considered like gold. So it's taken about a good 5 years for my factory to understand that I wasn't the crazy lady like gathering all the material or kind of pointing out when there's hundreds of yards left over that are just going to go in landfill. So they understand now. It takes about 10 years to really educate more through action. And so in our production, it's really considering thinking about when there is waste, designing for it ahead of time, knowing how much there is, and saving it for another future project or passing it on to designers and architects or artists to work with. So we're really just trying to keep the cycle moving.
It reminds me of where they say, like, if you do something for 10,000 hours, you become really proficient at it. It seems that there's a learning curve people collectively need to go through in order to like create a new habit. But I think that at the end of the day, it's really like habitual processes where somebody would see, oh, let's not toss 100 extra yards. Let's reroute it, because that becomes the new normal. That becomes the new habit. So it's sad that it takes 10 years, but I think we can get there eventually. Yeah.
And to your point, it really saves cost. If you think about how much money you've spent on acquiring some raw material or piece of furniture, or any good, and really thinking about every aspect of it, it saves cost. It saves me cost in thinking about every inch of that material to be used or passed on for someone else to use.
What was the craziest thing you salvaged or saved?
It's all cotton, so I do rescue denim from all the local denim factories, so I have an enormous collection of denim. but in the smallest amounts. So only crazy people can store small amounts of denim.
That's awesome. That's cool.
So if you come to my studio, it's very organized by color. So it's a rainbow of all the fabric I've saved from left to right.
So it's a visual treat to see all these. That's nice. Cool. Something interesting, according to the UN, this is not interesting, this is, again, sad. According to the UN, every minute the equivalent of one garbage truck of plastic is dumped into the ocean. That's horrifying. That segues into, what product does your business highlight that would be low waste or sustainable? Because I can't imagine that garbage truck just going bloop and dumping all that stuff in the ocean. So what is it that each of you might be doing that would be reducing from that?
You're the perfect person to answer this.
Yeah, I can go. I think with Fyrn, all of our products are sort of designed through a system, and I think one of the things that's important when we think about products is going back to sort of the design stage. So similar to design and construction, where if you're thinking about it before you're producing the products, you're in a better spot. So my partner is a guy named Ross Broughton, and he really set out with this system to think about holistically, starting from a white space, how do we do a better job of creating products that have the capacity to live on, maybe forever, if they're easily repaired or refurbished, and we create a platform for a secondary life for those products. So it starts with the material choices. You'll notice all our furniture is really simple. It doesn't have sort of a trendy aesthetic that's going to go out of vogue. So a chair has to look like a chair if it's going to be useful in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. In the material choices, we use really simple North American hardwoods and anodized aluminum or stainless steel for the internal hardware. So any of the excess wood is compostable, and the excess aluminum and steel can be infinitely recyclable. We try to source those materials domestically so they don't have to move long distances. And then the actual system of manufacturing, if you'll notice the sort of lineal lengths that all of our frames are, they stack really efficiently. In a space like that size of the wall, we can put about 1,000 chairs and component parts and pieces relative to if you're warehousing fully assembled stuff. But that also allows us to have incredible yields on the wood. So we get better than 90% yields on the wood stock that we're using, making sure that the materials that we take are not going to waste through the manufacturing process. And then even the excess materials, like if you've ever received one of our little design kits, we use the little excess materials in the design kits. As Shu was talking about, we do upholster some of the seats and backs, and we left with scraps and remnants from the hides. So this year at the Heath Make Good Market, we had 100 totes that were our sort of leftover leather totes, and we're using little pieces of leather for coasters, or we're donating the scrap so that other designers can put it to work. And then there's sort of distribution, so you have to move a chair, a stool. The one Ferdaus is sitting in, you can imagine when it shows up and 100 of them show up at an office space or at a restaurant, typically most seating that's sort of high-end comes in a big box. It comes in a box that's about 6 inches taller and wider, and there's a massive amount of waste in every one of those pieces. We can fit 6 to 8 pieces in that same sort of space, so when it's traveling, it's less transportation. They ship flat. It's an assembly that's sort of 5 to 7 minutes, and then there's not all that packaging is compostable. And then the final piece is sort of how do we make it easy for a repair? So every component can easily be replaced. There's no glue joinery. So the patented components, there's the external ones that you see, and internally there's a piece we call a bar part. We produce those pieces in-house, and basically those are set up so that, one, they create strength where in the joints where most furniture fails, but two, they create a really easy way for you to replace a part or a piece. If dog chews on a rung, or we've seen a 600-pound planter fall on a chair, the legs can be replaced in a day, and that stays in service. And it works for refurbishment too. If somebody sort of had something in their, let's say, restaurant for 7 years and they want to put new seats and backs on to add upholstery, we'll take back the old ones, we'll integrate those into products that we then sell on the annex. Just giving the furniture the opportunity to have a second and a third life, to support that in the sort of aftermarket, it's not gone once you make a sale, is the way that we think about the full life cycle of the product and sort of creating circularity. And I think that what I'm most excited about when it comes to this is sort of what you're about to do at CCA, and sort of thinking about industrial designers and others looking at product development from a white space and thinking about how to improve on that process versus just sort of entering the system as it exists, which typically is design a product, figure out where it's going to be made, don't worry about the rest, how it travels, what's going to happen to it after the fact. Planned obsolescence sort of is a profit booster, not a problem. So that's how we think about our system, and I think more of that type of thinking will help us reduce those 12 million tons a year that go to landfill.
Amazing, thank you. I was listening to something about planned obsolescence and that it was a concept that was introduced in the 1920s here in the United States as a encourager for the U.S. government to, I guess, bolster more sales and help the economy, to encourage the creation of products to have a quicker life cycle, which is a trend that since the 1920s has continued on to this day, where you can notice in your own day-to-day items, you purchase that same thing a lot more often than maybe just 20 years ago. And so, like you said, planned obsolescence is really great for a bottom line, but it's really horrible for the environment in the world. And then I know that Shu, you have something really interesting about your design method, and I would hope you could share that, how you design from, again, the white space.
Yes, I use a lot of math, and as a designer, that was troubling in the beginning. But luckily, there's Google Sheets, and I learned how to use formulas. So over the last 10 years, I've mastered a formula sheet that allows me to calculate the yardage and the output of my product. And it's really easy because I didn't go to textiles design school for sewing, so I'm kind of a crude mock-up sewer, and I wanted everything to be really easy, so everything is square or rectangular. So I started leaning towards something I was really passionate about, which is the golden ratio, and finding that in nature and in everything we do. If you look for the golden ratio, you can land on something pretty solid. And equally, I use origami principles, and so that allows me to create volume with that rectangular sheet or square. And so it makes my math really simple in a sense, but it's taken years to understand how does that work and translate to a final product, and how do we think about that yield. Typically, when you produce any piece of garment, there's about a 40% waste of material that it's never going to turn into product. They cut it, and all the negative just goes into landfill. We could cover all of California every year with raw material that's been cut to make your piece of clothing but never had seen the day of light. Pre-consumer waste is more troubling than post-consumer waste, and that's where I focus. If you look up sustainability, there's a lot of R's, all the R's, there's like recycle, reuse, all the R's. I really want to focus on pre-consumer waste. If there is waste, I save it. And so this year's collection is 10 years of material saved and now launched. So straps and things don't match because it is 10 years of honest material that's been saved, whether it's remnant from another production line that there are a few panels left or a couple yards left. So I call it the confetti collection, but it looks like a confetti throw up. But throw.
I'm sure it's nicer than throw up.
Throw up into the air. So this summer we have that confetti collection, which is single layer now because the cost of material has gone up 30%. Our labor cost has gone up in the city 30%. So I was thinking, how do I keep the company afloat and still with the same product? So you can carry your cast iron and all the heavy products. We've reduced the material use, which I think is really important. And it's 100% upcycled fabric.
Please check out her Instagram and her website and support and purchase.
And at the end of the day, it isn't something you really want to say, but if your product isn't useful anymore at Aplat, you can just bury it in the ground because it's 100% organic cotton. There's no zippers, buttons, clasps. I've designed it with origami in mind, knowing that you can unfold anything and just put it back into your soil, so we don't have to worry about the hardware that's in there.
Amazing, thank you. All right, actually, Jennifer, I wanted to ask you on your process because I know that you focus on low waste projects with your team. And so how do you in mind set up the client and your team to introduce that concept with your clients? Do they approach you knowing that that is kind of your focus is sustainability, or do you educate them after?
That's a good question. I think it's a mixed bag. I'd say half our clients care a lot about sustainability and the environment, and the other half don't want to talk about that at all. But we're sneaky. We just sneak it in there. They don't need to know that we're making choices for them that's good for the environment and their health. Like using zero VOC paints, for example, specifying all of the custom wood furniture. A lot of it's made locally in San Francisco. We specify FSC certified wood, which is sustainably harvested. We don't shop at big box retailers, because that's the most wasteful type of furniture, is the big box fast furniture. You're paying $6,000 for a sofa that's made in China. The carbon footprint is insane. The amount of packaging and that arrives with that sofa, lamp, side table, whatever, it's just wasteful all along the entire life cycle of that product, and then it doesn't last. So that it ends up back in the landfill. So clients don't always come prepared, but we think it's our job to educate them. This is the most common thing I think we see with clients. Oh, we'll just get a rug that's cheap, and we have kids, they're gonna spill. We'll just get a new one in 2 to 3 years. And it's like, why is this a theme? You know, you have to educate them. No, you can get 100% hand-knotted wool rug that will last you 25 years. It's the easiest to clean fiber. It's super durable. You don't need to have this concept of fast furniture. But I think that's ingrained in our culture, and we have to do our best.
Unsponsored shout out to Armadillo for being a B Corp rug corporation. Sometimes part of the education of the client is also showing them towards vendors who have, you know, those principles in mind, so that way when they're shopping or they're looking at inspiration, it's really important to say, hey, you know, these are also some companies to look at. Why don't you, make selections from their offerings? So when a client maybe comes to you and says, hey, I want to get fabric seal done on my sofa. It's often done with chemicals. What do you feel as a designer is your role?
It's actually non-toxic water-based stain treatment that we use, and it's great. It's a great product. But as far as purchasing fabrics that are already stain resistant, we stay away from that, because those are the chemicals that are really harmful, and they also produce a lot of bad chemicals that bleed off into our environment when they're being produced. So we avoid stain-treated fabrics, but we do stain treating after the furniture is delivered, because it's water-based and non-toxic, and that does help extend the life cycle of a piece of furniture, especially with families and young kids.
All right, another fact. The EPA estimates that 9 million tons of furniture are tossed every single year, which is roughly 5% of everything brought to landfills. Most of the furniture currently cluttering the dumps was made within the last 10 to 15 years. How else can we, encourage less single use?
I think extending the life cycle of the piece and investing in quality pieces is the answer to that. And let's invest in a desk that's solid wood, that's going to last for decades.
Yeah, I guess I'll say a couple things here. The most sustainable choice we can make is to buy something that lasts. So I think that's super important. We make lots of investments in our life in lots of ways that go to a multi-$100 dinner, or we buy a piece of clothing that costs a lot and we use it a few times. But the idea of investing $600-800 into a chair that you sit on every day for 40 years is crazy, right? Because I can get a cheap one for $100 and I can replace it when it breaks. So we've seen shifts in the food movement around more organic food, traveling shorter distances. Like, we've seen awareness build over time, as you were saying at the onset. I think we're doing the work to hopefully be thinking about the way that consumers will change their mentality. I think it's actually quite difficult for consumers to know what the right thing to do is in a world in which marketing is so good and it's so easy to take buzzwords and throw them back at consumers. I think the more that designers and the folks across the decision-making process can sort of be sharing insights around who is doing things differently, or what an investment in a well-made product really means for you over the long term, and we change our thinking to a little bit less immediate.
And I would just add, the Sustainable Furnishings Council, their website is a really great resource for designers and everybody in the trade to evaluate different companies and see how well they're doing. They actually get ranked on manufacturing and waste and a lot of different factors. That's a great place to start.
I recently had to do a lot of research on shipping and packing and storing. I wanted to try to grow and use a 3PL, third-party logistical shipping company, and they require everything to be covered in plastic. So I didn't have a need to do that, because I didn't have any packaging or any material, because I would ship product pretty raw. As a designer, you would think you can't do that, but I led with my principles and let people understand that I didn't need to add 5 postcards to make my product better. And so, having to move to a 3PL, I had to research compostable shipping product to warehouse and ship, and it was very, very difficult. I got all the way to a company in France called Impossible, but they only had 2 sizes and it didn't fit my larger tote. And what was great was that on the compostable packaging, it said very clearly, add water and stir, and it would dissolve. Just recently, the founder said he had added another size for me, but at that point, I'd already found a company called No Issue, which only does 100% compostable. There's two kinds of compostables. There's industrial and then there's domestic. So the one we use is domestic, so you can compost it in your residential green bin. Using paper is better, but compostable I think is great, especially if it's domestic grade.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could just add like one thing that keeps coming up, because we have a really wonderful system for some things that we want to make, but we have other things we want to make that we don't know enough about, figure out what our sort of version of a best practice is. And so just continuing to educate, understand what's the innovation in new materials, what's the innovation in technology that allows for us to have different processes, and doing our best to sort of provide incrementally improved sort of options for consumers is like what our goal is. Like, let's figure out what we're going to do if we're going to offer something that has cushioning. What are our choices, and how do we bring something to market that's gonna be smart and gonna have the ability to meet some of our principles? We also, I think, really are trying to make an effort to share what we've learned over these last 10 years with folks who are at the stage that they're thinking about new companies and industrial design, and provide an opportunity for maybe a shorter learning curve and exposure to a different way of thinking, because I think at the end of the day, you sort of need a lot of people thinking about doing things in a different way if you're going to sort of attack big industry or folks who own a large portion of the market. They're not incentivized to change in any material way, really. So I think the more folks who are thinking about alternative ways and giving them a path to see how to do that is really important.
That's great.
I did want to add the conversation we had last year, which was taking offcuts or sample swatch material from interior designers and architects. And so my hope is in the future that I'm not only using my own offcut and saved material, but perhaps there would be a curated opportunity to take the material that you're left with, interior designers, that you don't know what to do with, and then we collectively have a reserve so that we can turn them into pillows or curtains or your client totes. If you don't have a safe place to pass that on to, you can end up just throwing it away, and that makes sense. I worked at Steelcase and we had rooms filled with scrap material, and that was 10 years ago, and no one knew what to do with it, so we dump it. Knowing that now, I really want to be able to rescue other people's fabric and help them resolve that.
That's awesome.
I love that. I have 50 yards of salmon velvet.
Let's do a
Do you have
project.
a home for it?
We'll make product into it for your clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say are your top 3 best practices for the deconstruction or post-production phase of your respective industries?
Well, for us, it's providing care instructions for the furniture and making sure that clients know how to maintain all the things that they purchase and extend that lifestyle, the longevity of those pieces, providing them with local resources.
Yeah, I think we try to approach this with consumer programs. So like if you're going to buy 8 chairs, we send you 1 immediately so that you can think about, is this right, before you don't send 8 and then have to send 8 back if it's not right. So making sure someone gets an opportunity. We do that at no cost for them. So like you can actually sit on it, you can live with it, you can decide in a month, and if it's not good, we'll take it back and we'll sell it on that Annex platform. Once people do buy our furniture, we actually offer to buy it back in a perpetuity because we can refurb it and sell it on that platform. It sort of gives you an incentive to invest more into a nicer made product because you know that it'll hold value. And then I think again back to logistics, just sort of making sure that in the distribution of that product, it's not creating massive amounts of waste in getting it to a consumer.
Awesome. All right, another fact. According to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's Make Fashion Circular initiative, it's estimated that around 40 million tons of textile waste is generated globally every year, much of which is pre-consumer waste. The waste is generated during textile manufacturing and can include fabric scraps, cutting room leftovers, and textile byproducts. Although the exact amount of pre-consumer textile waste is difficult to quantify, it's clear that it is a significant issue for both the textile industry and the environment. Efforts are being made to reduce this waste, such as material recycling techniques, circular supply chains, and sustainable production practices. So it's nice that we do see change happening, especially with someone such as yourself creating these zero waste principles in the design itself before making the actual product. If any of you have one last thing to add.
I discovered 4 days. I don't know if you've all heard of it, but I just fall in love with this company. It's FOR __. I think there's 3 underscores, and then days, and they ship you a bag. You can put anything you want textile in there. So I started testing it with all the little scraps that are like really tiny, some thread, like a sock, a one sock that's lost its partner. And I think it's so great for people. And I'm hoping to work with them at a larger scale so companies can have a big bag or box. And so companies like myself could do larger quantities. But that's a good company to follow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Using what we already have out in the world rather than using new resources to buy something new. We always like incorporating a vintage piece into projects where possible. I don't know, I just think it adds character, and it's a great way. It's a great way to help and also add something more unique to your home.
Absolutely. So thank you, all three of you, for all the insight that you've provided. Okay, I just wanted to open it up to any questions or comments or insights.
I just want to give Shu a plug because the gifts for our speakers today are her totes. And so I have one unwrapped here, and I wanted to show you what it looks like here. Actually, you do.
Oh,
Because these are awesome. So this is what our speakers are going to get.
You drop your dish in.
Oh.
So I have one of these and I use it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. You can put your hot, so when you go to someone's house and you can put your hot dish. You explain it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like so excited about it.
Talk about it.
Like you can put your hot pie or casserole and bring it to a friend's house and look stylish and not weird with a bunch of foil and like your, you know.
It's made for designers.
No more saran wrap.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this panel. I have a quick question for Jennifer. You said half of your clients are very conscious about sustainability choices while the other half don't want to talk about it. So I'm really curious into the sort of psychology or the conditioning. What is behind that sort of reticence or unwillingness to consider? Is it like cost or like perceived efficiency of the whole project?
Thanks for that question. I think a lot of it has to do with cost. They just think, sustainable, they just automatically think dollar signs. And sometimes it is. If we're doing a custom sofa here versus a sofa that is made with natural latex foam and organic wool wrap, that is about 25 to 30% more expensive. You don't have to go all in. We can still specify foam with no flame retardants, which it does cost nothing more, but it's just healthier for your family. And there's things you can do that are no cost. The cost is one part of it, and then some clients don't understand it. Maybe they think it's granola. I don't know. They think, ooh, sustainable, is it going to limit my choices? I think educating that your home can be luxurious and sustainable, they're harmonious. That's a constant thing that we're educating.
A question about the tax breaks for the deconstruction. How would I research that?
So there's lots of local deconstruction companies. You can just Google a deconstruction companies. There's two that come to mind, and if I can find you afterward, I don't know their names offhand, but if you just Google that, you're going to find a lot of different deconstruction. And then they handle all the write-offs for the client.
Great.
Hi, I'm from Oregon, and I'm sure there's tax breaks up there too as well. But when you talk about tax breaks, are you talking about local or federal? Could you elaborate on the tax breaks and where you can find them?
I'm not a tax expert, but I believe it's state taxes. I mean, wherever you are, I think there's going to be deconstruction companies that specialize in that, whatever state you live in, and then they're going to have all that information, and they streamline the process, make it really easy for clients.
Just a quick comment on convincing your clients or sort of educating your clients and getting them excited. There's a lot of really cool makers that are local, and if you're supporting those folks, bringing them to the place where the product's being made, to the factory, to see what's special about it, which I can speak for myself, we absolutely do with designers and their clients. I'm sure you do as well. You'd be surprised how quickly they get excited to tell that story to the people that that they know in their lives, and suddenly you have someone who was skeptical become a massive advocate for those choices and willing to spend a lot more. I encourage you to sort of reach out to the folks that you want to source products from and ask them to, hey, can we come by with my client? We're pretty good at getting them excited about the choices that we want them to make. So come by, come visit us.
That's so true.
I'm curious, we're talking a lot here about post-build products, but especially for Jennifer, talking about tactics for engaging in a productive conversation with the contractor during the build process, both competing against the push for low cost, but also what's in it for the contractor.
So I think it's really important to select a GC that cares about that. And I think that if the client is presented with 3 bids and they just choose the cheapest one, and this person has no mention of sustainability, it's going to be a very hard discussion. So setting yourself up for success in the selection of that contractor, knowing that they have those values, they've worked on and built homes before, and they have a knowledge of sustainable building materials is huge.
And I'll just add that on the website we do have talking points to like get your clients on board or to talk how to talk to contractors.